All right, welcome, folks. We see people are entering in from the lobby right now. We'll give just another minute or so to have everybody get in and get settled, and then we will start the presentation. So we're really glad to have you with us. Hope everybody is staying cool on this really, really hot week. Okay, I think it looks like we have most everybody in from the lobby, so we will go ahead and get started. So welcome. I'm Janet McLaughlin. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Child Development Division within the Department for Children and Families. We're really glad to have the opportunity to tell all of you about some of the changes that are happening as a result of Act 76. Provide some updates and do some question and answer as well. We are recording today's webinar, and so we welcome our live audience today, and we also welcome those of you who are watching this video after the fact. We do have the chat closed right now, and we will open it up near the end for questions. But we thought we would try to get through some of the information first and then open it up for Q&A. I want to emphasize that today's presentation is really focused on updates to the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. We're going to have a couple other updates as well, but it's really on the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. And, our core audience for today's presentation are those of you who are leading and running early childhood education and after-school programs across the state. And I just wanted to take a second to offer just a huge appreciation and thank you for the teamwork that it really takes to manage as much change as Act 76 has laid out for early childhood education and after-school settings in the state of Vermont in the last year. It's been a huge lift all across the system. So that includes child care program leaders, the teams that are community child care support agencies, and our team here at the state. So I just big thank you to everybody for the time and energy you're taking to learn about the law, to understand the changes. And we hope that some of the expanded resources and the expanded resources available for programs, the increased benefits for families, and some of the other changes are really having a positive impact on your programs. We really do at the state have a commitment to the well-being of children, families, and communities, and we have a deep understanding, at all levels of state government that early childhood education and after-school programs really are essential to our goals as a state. So for today's presentation, we just want to emphasize that everything that we share will be available online. We do have an Act 76 webpage that stood up. And that includes links to any of the key documents related to the changes. It will include this presentation. We have a summary and status chart that goes through every single element of the bill and tells you sort of where we are in terms of implementation. And we also have a frequently asked questions document. So we've got all of those resources available online, in addition to our team, the CDD staff, as well as the staff of the community child care support agencies available for your questions. Today, you'll hear a little bit more from me, and then I'll really turn it over to Emily Hazard, who is our Child Care Benefits Administration and who oversees child care financial assistance for the state. And then in terms of our agenda, we have, we're going to be doing a little bit of review in terms of what's happened in the past year. And then we wanted to talk about a few Act 76 specific updates for you. And we'll have time for question and answer at the end. And just as a reminder for folks, right, Act 76, it passed pretty much exactly a year ago, did Act 76 become law. And, the purpose of it was to strengthen the quality and sustainability of of childcare programs and to improve accessibility and affordability for families. And it was a huge bill, a lengthy law, and it had changes in multiple areas. So there was changes related to that are laid out here, right? So it's the childcare financial assistance. There are some childcare licensing related elements, elements related to accountability and administration, including monitoring and tracking our success, or places where things maybe aren't going quite as well, but keeping track of the impact that the law makes. There also there's a pre-kindergarten committee that's been established that's been working over the last year, and there's a number of reports and presentations. So all of those things were in there. But again, today we're really trying to focus on the Child Care Financial Assistance Program related changes.
Great. So I'm going to talk to what has happened so far with Act 76. I'm Emily Hazard. I'm the Child Care Benefits Administrator. So it's been exactly 1 year since Act 76 was signed into law. And it's great to see just all of the progress that we have made so far. So the state reimbursements to child care programs have increased over the past year. We introduced a simplified rate schedule with higher base rates to better reflect the cost of providing quality childcare in July of 2023, very shortly after the act was passed. Increased rates again by 35% in December 2023, and began paying a state rate in December 2023, regardless of whether a provider's rates are less than the state rates. Also, in the past year, eligibility for the program has expanded. The income guidelines increased to 400% of the federal poverty level in April of 2024. Prior to that, they're at 350% of the federal poverty level. And we increased the $0 family share bracket. It was at 150% FPL, and it went up to 175% FPL also in April of 2024. And then we've also been preparing for this expansion of CCFAP with some additional funding. So an additional $2 million was allocated to support our eligibility specialists who administer the program locally at the community child care support agencies. And $21 million in Act 76 readiness payments were issued to providers. I think it's always great to just reflect on the progress that we've made, especially when we're still amidst some change.
Yeah. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, we've been hearing some anecdotally from programs who have reflected that some of the resources allowing them to increase staff wages, increase potentially open up classrooms that have been that maybe they hadn't had staff before, purchase materials that were needed. And we do know that there are families they're new families joining Child Care Financial Assistance Program as well, due to the expanded eligibility. So I think we'll turn to the updates section now. And there are, I will cover just a couple of these and then turn it over to Emily. And this first one is around the child care tuition rate increase cap. So for those of you who are, setting tuition at your program, you received notice from CDD last year that that Act 76 had set a cap on how quickly you could increase your tuition. And what it was saying that you're prohibited from increasing your tuition rate at levels that exceeded 1.5 times this very specific technical index. Last year, that amount was 7.2%. The news is that cap is no longer in effect. This year, in legislation this year, it happened to have been the Appropriations Act for the state actually repealed the tuition rate increase cap, and set a new implementation deadline for it for July 1st of 2025. So in a little over a year, the tuition rate cap is scheduled to go back into effect. And the reason that the legislature made this choice is because they did recognize that figuring out how to sort of calculate and implement and enforce the tuition rate cap was pretty complicated, and we needed some more time to figure it out. I know that they also heard from a number of programs who had reflected on the fact that this was the rate cap was feeling really challenging for them, just given what the trajectory was of their program, maybe some changes that they were making. And so the legislature said, let's take a break from it right now and bring it back again in a year. So that is not in effect anymore. And I would just offer that I do know that the intention that the legislature had when they set the rate cap was really to support affordability for families, especially those families who aren't eligible for childcare financial assistance. Right? There may be, they might not have a service need. There might be some reasons. There's plenty of reasons why a family wouldn't be eligible for childcare financial assistance. And so the legislature sort of had those families in mind, were thinking about and wanted to support affordability for them as well. But they recognized that so there's rate cap on a really quick schedule was having some unintended consequences. So that's been repealed. For now, should come back next July. The other sort of very timely update I wanted to share was just to remind folks that Act 76 is largely funded and into the future with a new statewide payroll tax. And that tax is going to start being collected on July 1st. So in just less than a couple of weeks. It is the Department of Taxes is who is leading that effort, right? So Department of Taxes has a web page that has all sorts of explainer videos and information for employers and self-employed people to explain what it is, what needs to be collected. If you use a payroll service, they've got that all figured out already and will be, ready to implement July 1st. But just wanted to recognize that this is happening on July 1st. It is what is funding the investments in Act 76, and the Department of Taxes is your resource if you have questions about that. So I think I turn it to Emily at this point.
Great, thanks, Janet. All right, so I'm going to talk about some of the upcoming CCFAP changes that are effective June 30th. So there are three major changes that I am going to speak to. So the first one is family child care homes state rate is increasing. So the Act 76 requirement, so for each of these changes, we've included what the Act 76 requirement is, just to kind of help frame where this change is coming from. So in Act 76, it requires the reimbursement rate shall then be adjusted to reduce the differential between family child care homes and center-based child care and preschool programs by 50%. So we looked at the difference between what family child care homes are reimbursed and what center-based child care programs are reimbursed, divided that amount by half, 50%, and that is the amount that family child care home rates are increasing. How is this requirement being implemented? So effective June 30th, we're increasing the rates for registered family child care homes. And what does this mean for child care providers? Just knowing this is our major audience of this webinar and people who support child care providers. So CDD is creating new CCFAP certificates for all households with attending a registered family child care home. These new certificates are going to be available in CDDIS after June 29th. Families will also receive a notification of the rate increase and new statements of eligibility. That's the one document that they receive that shows all of the compilations of certificates. Excuse me. So families will also know what their what the new rate being paid to family child care homes is. And then all new CCFAP certificates effective after June 30th will show the new increased rates. So the rates are posted on our website and just included here just for familiarity, orienting yourself that the way that they are laid out is slightly different than how or how they're presented in a chart is slightly different than how they've been presented before, but the information is all there for all age categories, schedules, full-time, part-time, and the state rate. Full-time, part-time, extended care, and the state rate. So the second change is changes to eligibility criteria. The Act 76 requirement is that a Vermont resident who has a citizenship status that would otherwise exclude the resident from participating in the Child Care Financial Assistance Program shall be served under this program, provided that the benefit for these residents is solely state funded. The department shall not retain data on the citizenship status of any applicant or participant once a child is no longer participating in the program, and it shall not request the citizenship status of any members of the applicant's or participant's family. Any records created pursuant to this subsection shall be exempt from public inspection and copying under the Public Records Act. That's the requirement. How it's being implemented is effective June 30th, 2024. Citizenship status of participating children is no longer a criteria for eligibility for the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. Currently, only children who are U.S. citizens or qualified immigrants are eligible for CCFAP. And this expansion, where citizenship status is no longer a criteria, any children who are eligible under this expansion their child care is being funded by solely state funds. And another change is that citizenship status for other household members will not be requested. It's currently a question on our application, and that is being removed. And it's important to note that families must meet other CCFAP criteria to be eligible. So they still need to meet the income guidelines, be Vermont residents, have less than $1 million in assets, and parents or caregivers must have an approved service need. So what does this mean for providers? It means that more children may be eligible for CCFAP, either children you are currently serving or children that you may be serving in the future. Another change is that we are updating the application to reflect changes with citizenship questions. And please contact your local community child care support agency if you would like to request any of these paper applications when they become available. We know that many programs have paper applications on hand for families, so we want to make sure that you also have that resource. And they will be available shortly at your community child care support agency. So the third and final change that we're going to discuss today is enrollment-based payments. So what is the Act 76 requirement? The language in Act 76 says payments shall be based on enrollment. The department, in consultation with the Office of Racial Equity and stakeholders, shall adopt rules pursuant to 3 VSA Chapter 25 that define enrollment and the total number of allowable absences to continue participating in the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. The department shall minimize itemization of absence categories. So based on this requirement, this is how we are implementing this requirement. So this has been a little bit of a process, determining how we will define enrollment and what paying on enrollment will look like based on the Act 76 requirement. So in late 2023 and early 2024, CDD engaged stakeholders and issued a memo defining enrollment in February of 2024, which is available on our website with even more information than is shared in this presentation. This is really a summary of where we're at now. So if you're interested in learning more about the history of how we got to where we're at with the definition of enrollment, that memo that was sent out to our listserv is available on the website and can be reviewed if you're interested. So the definition in this memo is that CDD will pay on enrollment when a child has an active CCFAP certificate tied to a specific child care program. The program submits its biweekly CCFAP attendance with hours of attendance or applicable coded days for the child, and CCFAP attendance does not exceed allowable coded days. And the change effective June 30th is that changes in attendance codes will minimize itemization of absence categories, and the total number of allowable absences to continue participating in the Child Care Financial Assistance Program is defined. So I will explain more about this change very shortly, but do want to note in our research, figuring out how we were going to implement enrollment-based payments, the model that we have currently is very similar to the definition of enrollment-based payments. So that's why these changes aren't huge at this time. They are minor changes. So what does this mean for childcare providers? So to minimize itemization of absence categories, we created a new attendance code C for all child absences. And this is taking the place of, the C code is going to be used in place of 3 separate codes that had been previously used: vacation, illness, hold codes. And we also didn't really have the best way to capture any unexplained absences. So now the C code can be used for vacation, illness, unexplained absence, any reason why a child is absent from the program. Another change that is being made as part of enrollment-based payments, we are increasing how many weeks we'll pay for when no notice is given. So currently we pay for 1 week with no notice. The change effective June 30th is that we will pay for up to 2 weeks when no notice is given. So to summarize, only 3 codes will be used for CCFAP attendance submission in place of hours of care. So no changes to how you enter hours, but the codes changing slightly. So the child absence code, there are 30 per fiscal year per child, 30 provider close days per fiscal year per provider, and then the no notice up to 2 weeks. And it's very important to note, this is noted on our attendance code guidance that's posted online, and I believe was linked in the communication that was sent out yesterday, but it's on the CCFAP for Providers webpage. Additional days for both provider and child absences that go above the 30 days per fiscal year, additional days may be requested through eligibility specialists for exceptional circumstances. Natural disasters, extended periods of illness, I'm sure there are other exceptional circumstances that will be raised over the next year as we implement this change. And it's also really important to note that CDD is going to be monitoring use of codes that are reaching or exceeding the limit to help determine if adjustments in the limit need to be made. So this is something where we've set a limit. We are going to be keeping an eye on it to make sure that it is a good fit. And this is an area that I know, hearing enrollment-based payments, lots of questions have come up around, what does this look like with entering attendance? So we're not making any changes to the requirement of entering attendance biweekly and using attendance codes. The attendance reports are really important for our program integrity. We regularly review attendance reports to look for errors or potential fraud. We need to have attendance records for audit requirements. It's also important for our overlapping work with childcare licensing and monitoring ratio and group size for childcare licensing. And it's important to note that variable certificates, when a provider is a backup or there's a transitional period, variable certificates always pay on a daily rate. So in order to pay on a daily rate, we need to know what the daily attendance was. So these changes meet the requirements from Act 76, but also very important to note that we're going to have more changes with enrollment-based payments and also paying prospectively, which means in advance, over the next 2 years. There is a new federal rule that requires states to pay prospectively in advance and by enrollment, and the federal definition of enrollment is slightly different than the definition from Act 76. So these are the changes that we've made for enrollment-based payments. Over the next couple years, there are going to be more changes being made around how providers are being paid. And then to summarize, there are still more changes to come. We've accomplished a lot with Act 76, but there are still a few more changes that are being made. So one of the changes that we are looking at is our policies related to self-employment and other service needs. Act 76 requires that we review and revise them consistently with reviewing best practice on a regular basis. So this work is going to begin in August of 2024, aiming to make the program as inclusive as possible. We're also required for our application to be provided in electronic and paper forms, in plain language, and comply with Office of Racial Equity Language Access Report. So I know in Act 76, the target date for the online application was July 1st, 2024. And in rolling out all of the other changes, that timeline was just not realistic for us. So we were able to extend out to September of 2024. So we are currently hard at work developing an online application, and we are expecting it to launch in early September of 2024. And then the plain language updates to the application have already been made and are incorporated into the current CCFAP application. We are also working on a marketing campaign for CCFAP in development. It's currently being developed and will roll out in summer and fall of this year. We're consulting with the Office of Racial Equity on public-facing materials and trainings for CCFAP, really trying to get the word out about CCFAP in a way that is user-friendly. We're hoping to have materials for providers that make it easier for you to refer families to the program, so a lot more to come on that. And then our big change in the income guidelines is happening on October 6, 2024. That's the beginning of the first service period in October, and the income guidelines are going to increase to 575% of the federal poverty level. And those income guidelines are currently available online on our website for families who may be curious if they'll be eligible in October, but we will not be able to accept applications for families who would be eligible with this extended income guidelines until October. So definitely good to know in planning, but holding off on applying until October. And then I'm going to pass it back to Janet to talk about additional financial supports.
Yes, so there is another program that was established by Act 76 with funding that an appropriation that would start next fiscal year. So it was called a Quality and Capacity Incentive Program that was created for the 2025 the state fiscal year 25 budget. It's funded at $10 million. And I would say this program is currently in development. When you look at the bill, it really is focused on how do we support those programs that have made significant commitments to offering quality programs, to improving their quality, as well as to increasing their capacity, especially in either in underserved areas or in populations that have higher needs, and for infants and toddlers. And so this is really just a preview slide to let you know that this is coming. We're still in the process of, we've gotten a little bit of external feedback on what that design should be through the Building Bright Futures, early childhood advisory committees, and we're putting that together and working with our business office in terms of figuring out how this would roll out. But it will include one-time recognition payments for quality and capacity related achievements. And I just want to flag this will be, a significant incentive payment would be made if you increase STARS levels or you renew your STARS level higher than what they are right now. We're still working on that exact dollar amount. But for those of you who have been deciding if, how you want to engage with the new STARS program, I encourage you to really take a look and get, to really take a look and see what's possible for your program, how it can help you be able to offer, the quality early childhood education or after school services that you want to be able to offer to families. So there'll be these one-time recognition payments. We're also going to be looking at how to roll out sort of a financial incentive to all programs related to quality and capacity priorities. We know, for those programs that maybe have been operating at 4 and 5 stars for years, right? You wouldn't get a bonus for jumping up, but we want to make sure that you do have a financial incentive for the fact that you're maintaining that quality level over time. And then They're also this program will also fund some training and technical assistance to support the attainment of quality and capacity goals. We know that coaching and supports are really important for programs to be able to achieve what they want to for kids and families, and just having support from some experts makes that much more possible and doable. So that will also be a part of this. So we are aiming to launch this by September of 2024. So stay tuned, but wanted you to know that that is coming. And Emily, back to you.
Yeah, so next steps, I know we've given you a lot of information, and we sent out a communication yesterday, but just to keep everyone updated on exactly what you can expect next. So there's going to be updated materials on the CDD website, attendance code guidance to be used starting with the June 30th to July 13th service period. That's currently available. Updated state capped rates. Those are also available on our website. Still to come, we have updated CCFAP policies to reflect these changes regarding application processing, our citizenship and immigration status policy, family support child care, and we have an attendance code policy also that really just reiterates everything that's in our attendance code guidance. And then we'll also be issuing a regulation memo. Our regulations were last updated in 2009, and that is something that we are looking to fully have our regulations updated over the next couple years. It's quite the process to update them, but in the interim, this memo is going to help bridge the gap between what is new as a result of these changes. You can also expect we do a mass certificate regeneration for families. That's when providers will be receiving new certificates. That's how we regenerate them, recreate them in a mass process to reflect the new rates. So for families who have at least one child accessing care at a registered family child care home, new certificates will be created, and then an updated paper application to reflect citizenship status changes and Office of Racial Equity, ORE feedback will soon be available. As always, there is lots of support with adjusting to these changes, and we want to make sure that your questions are answered. So we have an Act 76 webpage, summary and status report, FAQ, which we frequently update. First Children's Finance is a resource, a partner of ours. There's a pre-kindergarten education implementation committee that Janet had mentioned earlier. There's a link to that in this presentation. And then there's a few places to go if you have more questions or need support. CDD info or the CCFAP payments email at CDD are both available, and then First Children's Finance.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. And we're seeing questions coming into the chat. And I think I'll just fill air for a little bit while Emily gets a chance to review them. I think a few of some of the questions I think are related to the changes. Some of them are just about how CCFAP works as a whole, and they're not around things that have changed with this particular policy. So we focus in on the ones that are related to the things that have changed right now. And then if there's time, we could answer some of the other questions, or those are exactly the kinds of questions that your eligibility specialist is also there to help you answer as well. So Emily, do you want to, do you have a few things you want to offer given some of the questions in the chat?
I think I can go through some of them quickly. I know our time is limited. Can we still put a 0 in on attendance? Yes, 0 can still be used, but hours or codes need to be used for days that children are scheduled to attend. There's a question about taxes being taken out for self-employed. That is a question for Department of Taxes. We don't have oversight on that. Kimberly asked, are we not allowed to have blank spaces in our attendance? You are allowed to have blank spaces, however, need to have hours or a code entered for days that children are scheduled to attend. And then the follow-up question from Kimberly is, what if we were closed on Friday? Do I leave it blank? So you can also leave that blank because you're not open or serving children that day. And Anne asked, how do we manage CCFAP payments for children of public school teachers who take the summer off? I think that's a question that we'll have to follow up on. What happens when a family has reached their 30 child absence days? They are going to reach this very quickly following the recommended sick policies. That is where we had mentioned that an extension beyond those 30 days, reaching out to the eligibility specialist in exceptional circumstances. And CDD is also going to be monitoring for usage of those codes to help determine if more than 30 days is needed.
Emily, can I just offer something quickly there?
Yeah, sure.
It's just, I think for that, that 30 days, I think that's also a time where, if again, that's 6 weeks, right, that a child wouldn't be attending. This is a place where we just want to sort of check in and understand what's happening. Is there some additional support that that family might need to be able to attend more regularly? Is it a, maybe their service needs have changed and maybe the family doesn't actually maybe needs a part-time certificate instead of a full-time certificate. So, at that 30 days, that's sort of a time, and the intention is to ensure that that the support for the family is right sized for what that family needs right then. And some families may need more. And again, we have would be able to increase that amount. So I just want to sort of offer a little bit more behind that thinking. And as Emily said, we're going to monitor it and see if there's any changes needed in the future.
Joey asked a really great question. Does allowable absences to continue participating mean that if codes are exceeded, the family will be disqualified from CCFAP? We were very recently told that if codes were exceeded, payment would continue but be prorated. Has that changed? No, that will stay the same. So when codes are exceeded, if additional codes are used, those days where the codes are unapproved, so any above the limit, those days will be prorated. So if a code is entered for one day that is not approved, it's the 31st time that you've used a child absence code, you'll receive 4/5 of the payment for that week, unless it's an exceptional circumstance that we've reviewed and are able to increase the limit for that child. There's a question about CCFAP helping families use a family member for their childcare, either a regulated program or exempt. I think that may be something that your local community childcare support agency may be able to provide a little more information on our approved relative childcare program, which is also an option for families. I think I answered about days that children don't attend. The code segment was confusing. Can I just use code C for every absence on a regularly scheduled school day? I think that may need a little more clarification on what is meant. So the C is for any reason why a child is absent. So if they were scheduled to attend and they didn't for any reason, then the C code should be used in lieu of hours on the attendance. There's a program hasn't been using letter codes. That is letter codes have existed for a little while now, so it sounds like maybe some technical assistance would be helpful, because yes, codes do need to be used if your program is closed for the day or the child is absent. There's some feedback on service needs, which we will consider when we review service needs later this summer. There's a question about payments being split between programs that I think we'll need a little more information to be able to answer that one too. Will eligibility specialists be receiving a training on steps for when a family goes beyond the 30 days? And there's a timeline for this. Yes. So eligibility specialists have a training coming up on Monday, June 24th. We'll be discussing the process for requesting days beyond the 30 days.
And
but just
Emily,
knowing that those,
yeah. Okay. And can you confirm, right, the on June 30th, the days reset, right? So everybody will be back to 0. Yeah, on the 30th.
Technically July 1st, but this
Okay.
goes into this is implemented June 30th, which is a Sunday, which I believe it would be very rare for anybody to be entering anything on a Sunday, but it does go into effect June 30th. And then the days do reset with the start of our new fiscal year, which is July 1st.
Mm-hmm. So nobody's going to be hitting 30 days instantly. You would have to be.
Yes. Even if a child is scheduled to attend 5 days a week, we're looking at, I think August 10th is like the earliest that anybody would hit the 30 days. So we are still developing our process for that, and we'll involve eligibility specialists so that they know how to handle those requests. Was answering questions in order, but now I'm a little bit out of order. If a child changes providers, will the new provider be informed of how many C days the child used at the previous provider? We currently don't have a way for providers to see how many C days an individual child has used. So they wouldn't know if they have been used with a previous provider. But if you are entering codes and they're unapproved and you have any questions, there is an error message that comes up in CDDIS that says you've entered unapproved codes. Please reach out to CDD. And we can help provide you more information and figure out exactly why the code is unapproved. How far in advance will the program know if, or will this even happen? The program will stop receiving funding if a child is out for more than 30 days. That's that error message that I just mentioned, that when you enter your attendance and submit your attendance, if there are any unapproved codes, you'll get a message that says you've entered unapproved codes. Please reach out to CDD for more information. Will there ever be an opportunity for families to give their feedback, like the Act 166 annual family survey? Is that something that you might be able to speak to, Janet?
Yes. So I will say one is that we are working with a national research partner, Child Trends, that's going to be doing some focus groups for families and it's going to send out a survey to participating families and providers in child care financial assistance programs. So that I think it will happen in the next 3 to 6 months. So we will get that feedback with a research partner, with a third party. And then, anyway, I did recently hear about some other states that are doing more like an annual family survey, and I think that's something that we should think about.
I'll answer one more question because I know we're very close to time. There's a question about rates and raising rates to match the state rates because there's no cap. And then there's another person who asks, do we have to increase our rates to match the state rates? Or do we have discretion in this matter so we don't increase financial pressure? So CCFAP payments since December 17th, 2023 are based on the state rate. So we are basing the CCFAP payment on the state rate minus the family share with no comparison to the provider rate. We still ask that providers complete a provider rate agreement, one, because it provides important administrative data that we collect on what providers charge to families. And also there are provider responsibilities for CCFAP that you're agreeing to as part of the provider rate agreement. So a provider rate agreement is still required every 3 years, but there is no requirement to raise rates to match the state rates or to change your rates.
Yeah, as Emily said, yeah, there's no requirement. I will say our partners at First Children's Finance, they're here to offer business technical assistance to childcare programs around the state. So if you are thinking about, how you want to adjust your tuition, they are there to help you. As the state of Vermont, we really and it's, we can't tell you what to do or not to do about your tuition, especially now that that rate cap is gone. We don't monitor exactly what you charge private pay families. And so there's not a requirement that you do it one way or the other. And I think so. We are at 11:46, so we're just 1 minute over. And so I think we got to most of the questions that are here, and we will double check the list after the fact. We know that we got some questions online. We'll make sure we've answered those. And again, we really appreciate, everything that you're doing for children and for families every day. We appreciate your partnership in working through these changes. And, Child Development Division and our extended team of partners are here to help you. So thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, Emily, for presenting and for your hard work. And we hope that everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.